Good morning, everyone. This is Neeru Malik from School of Pharmacy and Emerging Sciences, Baddi University, extending my warm welcome in today's webinar, The Entrepreneurial Mind. For this, today we are having with us the leading entrepreneur, Prashant Issar, co-founder and CEO Square Meal Foods. He is in hospitality industry for over 2 decades, headed famous Michelin star brands like the Amaya and the global brands like Chutney Mary, majored his MBA in entrepreneurship from Henley Business School. He is the one who actually revolutionized the culinary landscape in India with brands like Mirchi and Mime and Madeira and Mime. From here, Prashant broke the convention and created a service design employing differentially abled staff, or in his own words, the ones with superpower. Taking this concept to the world, Prashant and Anuj exited their maiden venture in 2018 and formed Stratix Hospitality with the equity participation from Impresario Entertainment and Hospitality, which enables them to achieve their purpose for generating wealth for society. In his future endeavors across the world, including India, Singapore, Dubai, and London, he is going to give a chance of employment to over 600 differentially able persons. With this, Prashant is actually making a positive impact on society, which is the vision and mission of our university too. He also delivers various TEDx talks reflecting his journey, success mantras, and entrepreneur skills. But still, he says, I'm only just started. With this, I also welcome our prominent panelists. Professor Dr. T.R. Bhardwaj, Vice Chancellor at the University of Emerging Sciences and Technologies. Professor Dr. J.K. Sharma, Vice President, Indian Society of Seed Technology, Dean School of Agriculture Sciences, Baddi University. Professor Dr. Prakash, Head of the Department, School of Pharmacy and Emerging Sciences, Baddi University of Emerging Sciences and Technology. Our esteemed faculty of different schools of Baddi University and distinguished participants. Before starting with the experts' talk, Prashant, one of our students, has made a short clip reflecting your journey till now. Let's have a look on that. With this, I also cordially invite Shri Pradeep Srivastava, Chancellor, Baddi University of Emerging Sciences and Technology. So before getting started, I want to review the functionality of the webinar. Dear attendees, your active participation is important throughout the session. Right now, I have everyone on mute to avoid background noises that may distract from listening to the webinar. If you have a question for our speaker, please feel free to type them into the question box in your Teams control panel throughout the presentation. This webinar is live on BUEST Facebook page and YouTube Medium. FB or YouTube participants may type their questions in chat box of your FB or YouTube control panel. I'll bring them up during the presentation or during the dedicated question and answer session at the end of the presentation. Without any further delay, now I turn over the time to our expert speaker, Prashant Issar. Welcome, Prashant, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. I am definitely overwhelmed with this lovely video, and I would like to thank the esteemed panelists, Professor Bhardwaj, Professor Sharma, and my dear friend, Professor Prakash, for having me in this webinar. I am amongst highly learned and academic people here, and I personally never felt like an academic myself for most of my life till of late. So I've been looking forward to this because I really like interacting with students, and because I think they are our future. I really like interacting with universities because I think knowledge is what will sustain us in time to come, and has been over a very, very long time. So what I did was I created a small presentation, and it is not really a presentation, but it is actually markers for me to structure my talk. Usually I don't do this, but being part of such a panel and a university talk, I thought it would be best to prepare in advance. Usually my talks are very ad hoc, but despite this, my talk will be ad hoc because if I don't speak from my heart, then you will not get the gist of it. So with that, let me just share the screen and bring up my presentation. So when Paras asked me, what would you like to talk about, I just impromptu said the entrepreneurial mind. And then yesterday when I sat down to make this short PPT, I realized, oh my God, what have I done? Because it is definitely not easy to describe any person's mind, let alone an entire genre. So, but what I thought I would do is I will take you through various glimpses of my journey and give you examples to be able to give you an idea as to, you know, what I was thinking. Now, this is all in hindsight, and hindsight is wonderful, but it is also biased. So in hindsight, I show myself, I can show myself as a hero, which is great, and I love doing that. So if you look at this image, the entrepreneur obviously is the one with all the colorful thoughts in his mind. So I read somewhere, I heard it in a Hollywood movie, that having conflicting ideas in your mind, having and keeping conflicting ideas in your mind at the same point of time requires effort. And I really believe that is what an entrepreneur needs to do all the time. We carry a lot of baggage. We carry a lot of people on our backs as well. We carry their families on our backs. We carry our promise in our head, and we carry other people's destiny with us. So we carry a lot of responsibility, and which I think most people do, but we carry it comfortably. I remember that at some point during my MBA, someone told me that, if you get comfortable with the iteration, or in other words, repetition of challenges in your life, whether professional or personal, you will go through life with a lot more enjoyment and happiness than otherwise. And that kind of struck a chord with me. And then on that moment on, I started enjoying challenges, because challenges are commonplace. Every day you come across a few, but if you let them stress you out or trouble you, then life becomes a very difficult thing to get through. But since that day, I think my life changed with that statement. So when you Google entrepreneur, a lot of things come up, but there is one definition by Tom Peters which really rings a bell, which is that entrepreneurship is unreasonable convictions based on inadequate evidence. Now, you are all from pharmaceutical, from the pharmaceutical field, and this completely will possibly even annoy you, but it is true. Our convictions are unreasonable, and we do not have any evidence to support them. The only reason we support our convictions is our belief. And during the course of this talk, I will tell you how we continuously continue to do that in the face of absolutely rigid situations and environment. For example, a lot of people at this point of time, we all are in the midst of a pandemic. And I keep on hearing people say, oh, this is such an unprecedented situation. And I feel when you say unprecedented situation is when you are looking for an answer from a precedence in the past and finding none. And that, I think, is looking backwards. So I term this current environment as an extraordinary situation. It is extraordinary because it is not ordinary. But extraordinary situations bring out extraordinary opportunities. We are humans. We've come across such and even worse situations in the past and have overcome them with flying colors. And I just feel that this is one such situation wherein we have to come out all guns blazing. So that is why when I say unreasonable convictions with inadequate evidence, we are already in that realm. Entrepreneurs are already living the life where there is no evidence. So all our convictions are unprecedented, at least mostly. Because if they had a precedence, they don't attract us. So I also found these few quotes because yesterday I was going through my own Facebook page and I came across these, and I think they also bring forth or express my state of mind from time to time. Take the risk or lose the chance. Speak your mind even if your voice shakes. So I think speak your mind even if your voice shakes definitely rings a bell with me, because there are situations, there are board meetings you have to handle, there are staff and their families you have to handle, and there are times when at the back of your head or deep down you know you're on shaky ground, but you have to speak your mind. It has to be unabashedly upfront, And the third one, better oops than a what if. This I told myself when I jumped into entrepreneurship, that you know what, I want to start a business. I have always wanted to start a business. Should I or should I not? Or should I just take up a job and enjoy the rest of my life as I have been living previously? But then I said, you know what, maybe 20, 30 years from now, I would say, what if I would have? What is the point of going through life if you have no story to tell? I mean, how mundane or how boring would that be? So I think these are just a few picks. I could have put in 100 more over here, and I could have gone on talking about it forever, because this is what this is fuel to us on a daily basis. Entrepreneurs are kind of lonely, we live in our highs, and when we have our extreme lows, we have Google, and we Google entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship quotes, and that makes us feel good. Because if we feel bad, our entire team and our entire all our stakeholders will have no one to turn to. So if they look up to us, then we have to carry that responsibility. So that's what I said. We all carry baggage, but we carry it comfortably. Are entrepreneurs born or made? Well, I don't really know, but I put this question here because a lot of times people ask this question. And although it is irrelevant, it deserves a mention. And if you ask me, I don't know whether I was born an entrepreneur or I was made an entrepreneur, but frankly, is that really relevant? I sometimes say I'm an entrepreneur by chance. And I say that is because if certain situations would not have arisen, maybe I would not have been an entrepreneur. And life changes in a flash. I remember talking to someone over the phone, and that person was planning to do a 3-day leadership course. And that sent me, that was a trigger for me to, what, I always wanted to do an MBA. It was building up for years, but that trigger pushed me to book an appointment with an MBA school and go and meet their recruitment sales team. So I just feel I wanted to clear doubts now. Who are entrepreneurs? Some people say the Bansals, some people say Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, and there's so many. But are they really entrepreneurs? Are they inventors, some of them? Are they for us to inspire ourselves? So I read somewhere very recently about Elon Musk, which kind of confirmed to me that he definitely is an inventor, but also an entrepreneur. So when he sold his first company, I think it was called SpaceX, and he sold it for a very big amount, I think in billions. And then immediately after that, he ran out of money. And it said there that he was then staying with his friends because he did not have money to pay rent. And so when he was asked that, I mean, you just sold a multi-million or billion-dollar company, how come you don't have money to pay your rent? And he says, because I invested it all in my new venture. So that is the nature of an entrepreneur. We live in the present, but we think about the future. We live day to day, but we think a year or two ahead. And that is how we manage our business. So we have a kind of a romantic relationship with our life, and we kind of continue with that, because if we did not have that, we would possibly be in depression most of the time. It is all about attitude. And you see, for us, size does not matter. It is, we always like to challenge the status quo. We always like to challenge conventional wisdom. We always want to tell the world that, you know what, change is the only constant. So we believe in that. We, pure and simple, we are brave. Perhaps only on the outside. Inside we are all shaken up. But on the outside we wear this facade because, yes, we have a lot of people to convince on a day-to-day, hour-on-hour basis. And we enjoy that. It is important that you start enjoying it. Now, to set the context right, why I think this talk is beneficial to almost everyone, even a student, whether you become an entrepreneur and have your own business or not. They have a new term now called the intrapreneur. The intrapreneur is an entrepreneur who's working for someone else. The entrepreneur and the entrepreneur both have to hold leadership positions. The entrepreneur has freedom, the entrepreneur has lesser freedom. But the entrepreneur is thinking like an entrepreneur for his organization. And that is what takes his organization to the next level. So whether you plan to start a business of your own or you want to work for an organization, if you have this entrepreneurial mindset, I think it can only benefit. I think this pandemic, COVID-19, has taught us that change is the only constant. It's beyond question. It is incontestable. So it is all about attitude. It's all about, my small company can challenge a big organization. In fact, I am far more lean, mean, flexible, and adaptable than any big organization. So imagine how easy it is for me to adapt to any changing environment as opposed to a behemoth who's been there and supporting lots of people and products. It's easier for me. So I just feel not only that size does not matter, I feel the smaller you are, the better, in better shape are you. Now, growing up, I got this somewhere as well, in fact, on my Facebook page. So it says, eventually all things fall into place. Until then, laugh at the confusion, live for the moment. And everything happens for a reason. You know what? No one told me this when I was growing up. Because when I was growing up in India in the 80s, 90s, India was a very, very different country. It was extremely, extremely important that you score well in your exams. The board exam of my 10th class and 12th class started troubling me when I was possibly in 5th standard. It started making me nervous when I was in my 5th standard that 5 years and 7 years from now, I would have to do well in that. I mean, that was the conventional wisdom, because if you do not, then you perish. Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's men and all the king's horses could never put him back again. So that is what growing up was at that point of time. I remember, and more so, I had an elder sister. And for all those of you who have an elder sister, I must tell you, they're all born geniuses. They're all very good in academics. And that doesn't help you, at least doesn't help people like me. Because I'm not a genius. I'm a human being. And my sister was a genius. And not just her, every kid in the neighborhood apparently was an Einstein in the making. Every one of them would be scoring very high, or at least their parents said so. I don't know whether it was just my parents who wanted to parade me as a mediocre person, but I was the only mediocre person I knew growing up. Everyone's child was doing well. So there were times when my father would not enjoy a conversation around what is your son going to become when he gets out of college, or whether he's going to follow medicine or whether he's going to follow engineering. So I told him at that time, I said, you know what, Dad, I want to start a business of my own. And he told me, he says, how can you start a business? You are not an Agarwal, you are not a Gupta, you are not a Sood, you are not a Patel. Business is in one's blood. You are an army man, a serviceman's son, you're not a businessman. You're not designed to be a businessman. And I used to wonder why. Is that really true? Because at that time I believed it. And I believed it, I took it on at face value that I said, okay, fine, great. Let us join the defense forces. And that didn't go down well. In my service selection board, the SSB interview with the board president, I tried to convince him, you know what, even though I was mediocre, I was actually quite intelligent. Because deep down in my mind, I believed that, you know what, I am differently intelligent. I can see what you possibly cannot. I can think what you possibly cannot. I can deep dive. And he was not convinced. So there I was, come back and get through that. Yes, hotel management happened. And I was very happy to be there because I was amongst people who were all wanting to be more outdoorish, as in more doers than the studious academic kind. So by the time my sister was in, I think, 4th year of her medical school, I was already earning money and very proudly giving a part of my paycheck to my parents with a lot of pride. You know, I was in a hotel, I was in a suit, I was interacting with customers, getting a paycheck at the end of the month. So I think if someone would have told me, in 5th standard that don't worry, it'll all fall into place, don't worry. Imagine that 5 or 7 years I wasted in nervousness would have been so much more fun. So anyways, so I joined the hotel, I was working in the hotel, I was having fun in the hotel as well. But I did not accept performance metrics. I did not accept KPIs. I did not believe in a particular way of doing things. Because what I believed in was happy customers. I just felt that is why we are here, is because we have to make customers happy. So this hotel group that I had joined, they were founded on a philosophy of never saying no to guests. They were found on that philosophy. So why should I listen to or adhere to the SOPs which were designed by possibly an intern in the training department? I would rather follow the philosophy of the owner, because when if you study the GAPS model, or if you've not, I think it's a great model to study. When you actually see when a new venture is started, the founder has a particular philosophy or a thinking in his mind, or a perception of what the venture will be. But as it translates into reality, there are a lot of compromises that happen over time, because the managers come in and they give him a reality check, possibly every day. That this cannot happen, that cannot happen, this cannot happen, that cannot happen. We have to change this, we have to tweak this, we have to make this more real, etc., etc. And then it ends up becoming a product which is a very vague resemblance of what the founder went out to achieve. And that is what I thought. I said, no, I would actually rather listen to the founder of never saying no to guests, as opposed to the SOPs, because we are in a hotel, we are in an industry run by the people, for the people. And if there are people, their needs, desires, wants change from time to time, hour to hour, second to second, depending on the situation or whatever they would want at that point of time, or the time of the day, then how can you have a standard operating practice answer that? I think SOPs are static and inhibiting in a very dynamic environment. environment is dynamic, SOPs are static. The only part that is actually empowering is philosophy or the values of the organization. I went ahead to find out the values of various organizations, and I found them to be so mundane, as in, we will look after our people, we will serve with honesty, integrity, etc., etc. Well, they actually don't point you in any direction. That anyways you have to do ethically. Then why have them written down as values? Because their ethics and values have a very blurred line in between. Ethics you obviously have to follow. Values are what you think. And that is what I think constructs a business. If you do not have values pinned down on the day you write down your vision, then you will not be able to brick-wall your company against external forces and influences. And that, I think, is very important. I remember once in that hotel, a customer asked me, this is 1990s, guys, asked me for cranberry juice. And you know what? At that point of time, I had no idea what cranberry juice was. In fact, we did not have it in a 5-star hotel. Then how will I have an idea about cranberry juice? I said, so he asked me, do you have cranberry juice? I said, let me find out, because I would never say no to guests. I went, inquired with the stores, etc. No cranberry juice. What is it? Tell us about it. I went out, and there was this shop that used to sell a lot of imported chocolates, etc. And I found cranberry juice over there. I did not even see the best before date, because I'm talking hindsight now. I just bought it, and it was very expensive at that point of time. I think it costed me over 100 rupees. And 100 rupees was quite a lot of money at that point of time. And I brought it and served it to him. He was wowed. So a lot of my peers or even my immediate superiors might not have supported my way of working. But I was a darling of all the guests. I loved my customers. To this day, I believe in customers. My customers are internal, which are my staff, and my customers who I have to look after, and my customers are external, my customers, which are my guests who are paying for my staff, for me, for my company, for my life. So that I would take philosophy over standard operating processes, practices any day. I know you guys cannot, but you're in a very technical field. But I can. Now, I moved to the UK, and this was, I think, the year 2000. And I remember that I was so glad to get a job before my sister had become a doctor. I was done with academics. But in UK, I was working for a company which was helmed by these 3 people who were highly academic and highly learned. See, academia and learning overlap each other, as well as at times are far away from each other. So also for academics. I mean, it's a lot of people, for me, studying and learning are 2 very different things. Learning is enlightenment, studying is a check in the box. So interacting with these 3 very learned, academic, highly qualified people, I realized that they were so different. They were not from the restaurant industry, and I was looking after restaurants for them. But they were so logical in their approach that they actually did not need to know the intricacies, the intricacies or the details of my industry to question me. And they would always catch me dumbfounded. And when they would ask me that question, and then they would come up with a response because I would not have one, the response seemed such a no-brainer. So I decided, okay, they are masters of economics, etc., and MBAs. I also want to be an MBA. I started researching. I read somewhere that the first business school was started by Plato 2,500 years ago. 2,500 years ago, and he taught critical thinking, and that critical thinking is still relevant today and still a part of the MBA curriculum in most business schools. Imagine if you thought of something today, and in the current situation we are in, is it even relevant 25 hours from now? And this really shook me up. And I said, I want to take up an MBA. And I started, and then I told you about the trigger. Because I thought, and being a procrastinator that I am, which also entrepreneurs are at times, I just let it simmer. But that day, that phone call wherein the other person told me that he is doing a 3-day leadership course, I thought to myself, hey, I think it's time to do the MBA. As I met up with various business schools, not just one, in fact, I attended various open days, business schools in US, business schools in UK because I was based there. And finally, I zeroed down on Henley Business School. And why Henley Business School? Because it taught an MBA in leadership and general management, and I always considered myself a leader. Although I realized later that a single follower can make even a lone nut a leader. Who is the leader? Anyone who has a follower, basically. But anyways, so Henley Business School. I also liked their values. Two of their values which I have carried forward in my companies and my business right now are that integrity and commitment are as important as capability and skill. In fact, in my business, I say they are more important than capability and skill. And the second one is that it is important for businesses to generate wealth for society in addition to generating wealth for the individual or the founder. And I felt that is most needed in India. It is not just the 2% mandatory CSR that we have to do, but imagine if every business contributes to society and community in addition to the business of making money. That makes us first world. From a developing nation, we become first world country. I've never wanted the government to always provide me comforts. I think the government is doing a very good job. They are supposed to be doing what they're supposed to be doing, running a nation. But what are we doing? Always looking at them for handouts? No. Are we doing what we are supposed to do as a company, adding value, generating wealth for society, for community? And that is what I liked in Henley Business School. And I took up entrepreneurship as my elective. Why did I take up entrepreneurship? Because I took up entrepreneurship because I wanted to find out whether entrepreneurship is in your blood or whether a non-Agarwal, non-Patel, non-Sood, non-Gupta can also have a business of his own. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to in any way be derogatory to these surnames, names. In fact, I respect them a lot because they are actually the ones who actually were the pioneer entrepreneurs of our country. So, but I was like, all right, let us find out. And during that, what I found out was what changed my life again. It didn't actually change my life, it validated. An MBA changes you, that's what they say. I don't know whether it changes you or not, but it definitely shows you a mirror and it says to everyone, not just me, anyone, that you're right. Whether you think left or you think right, you're right. That validation propels you to express yourself and take risks and be who you want to be. You know, I just really fell for it. And this MBA, I did not do how I did my schooling, which was a check in the box studying. This MBA I did to learn. I did to educate myself. I did to develop myself. And by gosh, how did I develop? My God. I think I definitely flowered in the MBA. I'm not promoting the MBA, I'm just telling you, I'm sure any masters, this is masters in business, there might be masters in pharmacy, there might be masters. A master's degree is a master's degree. It is a master's and a bachelor is like chalk and cheese, I think, for me. I think bachelor's prepares you, but the master really makes you a master. And that's what it did for me. I realized who I was. I was a manager. A manager symbolizes order. A manager symbolizes an organization. A manager tells you that, you know what, if you give me these 5 resources or 4 resources, people, process, technology, and information, then I will give you this revenue. Now, people, process, technology, and information. These are 4 key resources. Now, the most common characteristic of these resources is scarcity. They are never available in abundance. You will always be short of people. You will always be short of some process is not functioning because the technology, is not working as it should, or the tools are not performing, or we are short of tools or technology or information. I was not told this party was happening today. I was not told the vaccine was required 2 weeks ago or a year ago. I was not told information. So when all these resources have an inherent trait of being scarce, how can a manager satisfy the entrepreneur or the business owner? Never. But the manager can definitely tell you, it's not my fault, hands up, I did not have the resources to achieve that. To give you an example, if in a restaurant you serve 100 people using 10 staff, then on a particular day, if 2 staff don't turn up, that means you have only 8. The first thing a manager will do is tell the lady at the door, don't take too many bookings. Today we can only serve 80 people. 10 people, 10 staff, 100 people, 8 staff, 80 people, 5 staff, 50 people. Because for him, lesser the resource, lesser the revenue, lesser the result. But yes, they symbolize order. Everything has to be prim and proper. That is a manager. A manager pursues or alters. A manager alters the pursuit of an opportunity based on the resources available to him from time to time. That is a manager. That is what I learned, who I was. But I also learned I was slightly different, which we will come to in a couple of slides from now. Then I used to think of, I am a leader. Now, who is a leader? The leader symbolizes control over destiny. Destiny. Focused on the objective. And who's an entrepreneur? The entrepreneur symbolizes creation of new worlds. The entrepreneur pursues an opportunity without regard to the resources available to him. So if I was in the restaurant and 2 staff did not turn up, so instead of 10, I had only 8, I still would not allow myself to not serve 100 people because that was my objective. In fact, I will be happier that now I'm serving 100 people with 8 staff, so I'm saving on the salaries of 2 staff, So my bottom line is also more healthier than otherwise. And if this works, and if this goes on well today, then maybe I can slowly reduce my staffing to 8. So my staff to guest ratio will improve. My guest to staff ratio will improve. I will serve more guests. Then with 8 people, I will serve 100. Means with 16 people, I will serve 200. And no, not 200. That is a linear solution. With 8 people, I'm serving 100. With 16 people, I'll serve 250. I am thinking efficiencies here. For me, people, process, technology, information does not matter. For me, what matters is the objective, where I want to be. And people think, you know what, entrepreneurs are lucky. And I think Gary Player, he was a golfer and still runs a very successful business. And he said it right. He said, the harder I work, the luckier I get. And I think that sums it up. You see how lucky I am. You do not see the work in the background. It is said that overnight success usually takes 10 to 15 years in the making. But what we see is overnight success. What we don't see is the 10 to 15 years of sweat, blood, and toil. We don't see that. I also learned during that entrepreneurship module that an entrepreneur is very confident. Because if we are not confident, how will people follow us? How will they accept our vision? How will the board believe us? You know, the biggest of decisions in the biggest of companies, in the biggest of boardrooms are not based on data as much. And this completely might be my theory. Yeah, and if someone begs to differ, please be my guest. But it's based on opinions and judgments of humans only. So an entrepreneur has to be confident, charismatic, because you have to convince, energetic, obsessed, ambitious, and always in a hurry. Why are we always in a hurry? Because we feel 24 hours is too short a time in a day. And a 70, 80-year long life is just too short. We have to do so much. At any given point of time in my head, I have possibly 3 other concepts running. You know, as I said in the beginning, having conflicting ideas in your head and keeping them requires effort. That's why we are always in a hurry. An entrepreneur is also arrogant, stubborn, manipulative, non-completers, impatient, obsessed with competition. Why are we arrogant and stubborn? And for this, I have a great example. You know, when Edison invented the light bulb or electricity, before he went ahead and do that, he obviously would have wanted to convince people. How would he convince people? You didn't know what electricity was about. So to convince people, you would have told them, you know what? I am going to invent something which, with the press of a button, will be day, and the press of a button will be night. I don't know how better he would have been able to say it earlier. It'll be like day or like night, whatever. The other person would have thought of him as a lunatic. How is that even possible? And a lot of people would have tried to discourage him. You know what? Listen, Thomas, let this one go. But it is the stubbornness of that mind and the arrogance of that mind and the lack of rationality in that head that made him persevere and continue and got us the electricity and the light bulb that we used even today. Amazing, isn't it? And you know what? All of a sudden, Edison bulbs are back in fashion. In fact, we pay 10 times more to buy an Edison bulb which has that filament visible in the middle. They say fashion comes a full circle. Well, it does. Manipulative. Yes, entrepreneurs are manipulative because you cannot convince the janta all the time. You just have to manipulate them into doing what they're supposed to do for the greater good and their own good. But to get the message across to them and trying to explain to them your mindset, like I'm trying to in this case, is not always easy. And it's time consuming, and we are always in a hurry. So just manipulate them for their own good. Non-completers. Well, this is a strange one, but it is true. Once we have made the product, we want the others to run it because we want to do the next thing. We get bored. We really get bored. In fact, sometimes when the product is not coming up the way we are supposed to and there's just too much reality checks in the middle, we are already out of it mentally. We are obsessed with competition. I remember my father told me, and I was a mediocre student. My sister was a year elder to me, as I told you, was really an academic champion. So in middle school somewhere, I think this was 6th or 7th standard, my father said, you know what, whoever or if both of you achieve over a certain percentage, and then I will buy that person a watch, his or her first watch. I had never even reached within 5 or 10% of that number. But that year, I even beat my sister. And I got my watch. She got it, of course, but I beat it by a long mile. Then after that, my father thought, oh my God, finally he's arrived. And now he will always be a top scorer, like all the other friends' children. That was not the case. I was back to my mediocrity next year. And then also he tried me. But I was done with it. I had proved a point to myself, to him, to everyone else. And that's it. It bored me now. So you challenge us, we will perform. In fact, sometimes we take out opportunity out of nothing and then convince ourselves and follow it and create. Because we have to feed ourselves creativity all the time. We have to feed ourselves creation. So that is who I think, in short, I mean, I can go on, but I think our mind is a lot more dynamic, irrational and eccentric than most people. We've just tried to make it quite heroic, so other people follow us. I don't even know whether entrepreneurship or an entrepreneurial brain really is a structured thing to talk about. But yes, there are people like us who like taking risks, and what you think is dogmatic and idiosyncratic right now, if we provide you proof of concept, then those become guiding principles. But that is the realm or the area that we really dwell in or live in. And all those of you who would like to become entrepreneurs, all the very best. Those of you who work for someone else, become entrepreneurs, all the very best. I think if you live or if you think like this, then you'll be far more comfortable with the iterative nature of challenges. So I think that brings me to the end of my talk here. Thank you very much, and I hope it was fruitful. So thank you.
Thank you, Prashant. Your words are going to motivate the budding entrepreneurs for sure, and they will think out of box from now.
Thank you.
Prashant, now we are having some of our students with us, and I think they are keen to ask you something. So I request the students to please start with their questions one by one.
Hello, sir. Myself, Vatsala. Sir, I'm very much inspired after listening you, and I have few questions for you. But before that, shall we continue in Hindi because I feel more comfortable in that?
जरूर जरूर प्लीज करिए.
Okay, sir. Sir, सबसे पहला और stupid सा question, but मुझे जानना है, what is cranberry juice?
Cranberry juice, it's juice of the cranberries. It's a red color juice. It is actually very high in antioxidants, and it is thin. Yeah, I think it's very easily available. अभी तो बहुत आराम से मिलता है. ओशन स्प्रे कंपनी का नाम है, आप ले सकते हो. Very extremely sweet juice actually. I really like it.
And my next question is कि what does it takes to be an entrepreneur? कुछ तो मतलब ऐसा हो demand होती होगी ना, in the sense of sacrifices or something else.
I think
it is a very big thing.
नहीं एक्चुअली वसला जी उतनी बड़ी चीज नहीं है. इट इज कई बार तो सिचुएशंस ही बना देती हैं. नौकरी नहीं मिली तो एंटरप्रेन्योर बन जाओ, ऐसे भी होता है. और क्यों नहीं हो. जरूरत इसी कहते हैं ना, नेसेसिटी इज द मदर ऑफ इन्वेंशन. जब जरूरत होती है तो आप कुछ भी करोगे. तो मैं ये चाहता था, एक्चुअली आई एम ग्लैड यू आस्क्ड मी दिस क्वेश्चन, बिकॉज मैं ये चाहता था सबको बताना कि इट्स नथिंग यार. एट द एंड ऑफ द डे कोई भी बन सकता है. थोड़ा सा वो कहते हैं ना, जैसे मैंने बोला, अनरीजनेबल कन्विक्शंस विद सपोर्टेड बाय नो एविडेंस. थोड़ा सा बिलीफ की जरूरत होती है. यू हैव टू व्हेन आई टॉक टू पीपल एंड आई टॉक टू माय कंपनी, even during this pandemic, I talk to so when I say I am supporting 100 families, because 100 staff to 100 families, when I talk to them, if they don't see me confident of my belief that we will be able to tide over this situation, then imagine how nervous will they be. So अगर आपको entrepreneur बनना है तो आपको एक चीज बहुत जरूरी चाहिए, वो confidence. In fact, over confidence. आपको ओवर कॉन्फिडेंट होना है.
ओवर कॉन्फिडेंट कभी कभी सर मतलब गलत वे में भी ले लिया जाता है.
हाँ, लेते हैं तो क्या फर्क पड़ता है. वो तो कॉन्फिडेंस भी गलत वे में लेते हैं, और वीकनेस तो और भी गलत वे में लेते हैं, और नर्वसनेस तो उससे भी ज्यादा गलत वे में लेते हैं. अगर महात्मा गांधी बोलते आप मेरे साथ सत्याग्रह करो, हो सकता है फ्रीडम मिल जाए, पक्का नहीं पता, तो कौन करता. अगर सुभाष चंद्र बोस बोलते कि आप मेरे को ब्लड दो, हो सकता है मैं वहां डोनेट कर दूं ब्लड कैंप में, पता नहीं फ्रीडम मिलेगी कि नहीं, तो कौन करता. वो कॉन्फिडेंस उनमें था. आई एम नॉट सेइंग ओवर कॉन्फिडेंट थे वो लोग, बट आई एम सेइंग एक्चुअली देखा जाए तो कॉन्फिडेंस ओवर कॉन्फिडेंस क्या है पतला. कॉन्फिडेंस तो कॉन्फिडेंस है.
यस सर. और सर एक और क्वेश्चन था मेरा कि आपका जो ये मिर्ची एंड माइम जो रेस्टोरेंट है, उसमें जो आपके यूनिक सर्विंग स्टाफ हैं, उसका आइडिया आपको कहाँ से आया? मतलब ये बहुत यूनिक, मैंने पहली बार सुना आपके केस में वो भी.
तो मिर्ची एंड माइम और मडेरा एंड माइम और इशारा, तीनों में वही सर्विस स्टाफ है. मिर्ची एंड माइम और मडेरा एंड माइम हमने बेच दिया था 2 साल पहले, वो अब मेरा नहीं है. क्यों बेचा था? क्योंकि ये आइडिया जब हमको आया था, ये फेसबुक में एक वीडियो देखा था हमने, someone had done it in Canada.
Okay, sir.
तो हमने कॉपी कर लिया.
Okay.
To be honest, वो कहते हैं ना, there is nothing original in the world anymore, because and if you're not sure, just Google it.
Yes, sir.
The thing is not that we copied it. The thing is that we decided to better it. जिस रेस्टोरेंट को हमने कॉपी किया था ना, वो 1 साल में बंद हो गया था.
Okay.
और हमारे रेस्टोरेंट आज 5 साल से चल रहे हैं. हमने बेच दिए तब भी चल रहे हैं, और हमने नया कंपनी भी खोला, एंड दैट कंपनी इज नाउ, जैसे मैंने बोला, इम्प्रेसारियो ग्रुप के साथ. एंड लुई विटॉन, व्हिच इज अ बिग डिजाइनर एंड वन ऑफ द बिगेस्ट conglomerates in the world, Louis Vuitton, Moët Hennessy, they are our partners in this. And उनके थ्रू भी हम ये करेंगे. तो आइडिया कैसे आया? देखो, ये जो बच्चे होते हैं ना, जो बोल नहीं सकते, सुन नहीं सकते, वो स्माइल बहुत करते हैं। और आप जब भी किसी रेस्टोरेंट में जाओ तो पहली चीज आप देखो, वहां पे जो वेटर खड़ा होता है ना, उसके शक्ल पे लिखा होता है कि अरे यार एक और गेस्ट आ गया, अभी इनको भी खिलाना पड़ेगा, मेरे को तो घर जाना है. See, the willingness is not there, but these boys and girls, they smile more, they are more focused, and they are intuitive. उनकी sixth sense भी है, वो आपका face पढ़ लेते हैं. तो they are actually far better in hospitality than the rest of us. तो हमने बोला जब हैं and available हैं, और इनको and quite a few, ये जो हमारे बच्चे हैं ना, they are BCom BA किया हुआ है, और वो करने के बाद, and some of them with distinction, और वो करने के बाद भी they got jobs like stacking shelves in a shop. तो हमने बोला we will give them what they can do. हमको क्या डिफरेंस करना है, हमको वर्बल कम्युनिकेशन को विजुअल बनाना है. इतनी छोटी सी चेंज and a new world is created. And that is what we did.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Next question, please.
Hello. Good morning. So I had a question. As you all know, there's this saying that behind every man there is someone who inspires you to work so hard. And as we have all known your journey, so I was very curious to know as to what inspired you, as if there is a person or something that was your pillar who supported you to come this far.
So if I don't say it was my wife, then I'm in trouble. So, but I think there is not just one person. There are a lot of people behind every one of us, whether we consider ourselves successful or not. See, success is relative. How successful you are is relative. It is, if you are benchmarked against people who are less successful, you appear successful. If you're benchmarked against people who are more successful, you seem less successful. So success is relative. Whatever you do, you need support from your family and friends. And someone asked me, Prashant, how can I know whether this idea of mine is going to be a successful venture or not? And I say, just discuss it with 4 friends. And if at least a majority, that is 3 of them, agree to support you, that means the idea is good to go. So there is no analysis paralysis required. It is very simple. If your idea is attractive to other people, then that means there is some meat on it. Families always bear the brunt of it. When you work hard, who misses out is your family. I think one of the positive things coming out of this pandemic is the amount of time I've spent with my wife and daughter is unprecedented. The rest is all extraordinary, but this is unprecedented. And I've really learned a lot more about my home and my house and my daughter and my wife, and they've learned a lot more about me now than they would ever have. So I think the family bear the brunt of it, so their support is important.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Next question, please. Of our students or our panelists. Looks like we are done with our questions. Any other question left over from our attendees? Please feel free to ask our speaker. I think Dr. Paras.
Well, thank you, Prashant. Thank you for letting your heart out to us. And I don't have any questions. I'm just fascinated by the talk that you've given. And I would rather call you a socialpreneur than an entrepreneur, because the kind of work that you chose to do was exceptional, and my heart flies out to you today after hearing you and yourself after such a long time. So thank you for that. On behalf of Baddi University, we intend to initiate a business incubator for our children. And I wish we could have you on our advisory board at least to guide our children for the future entrepreneurs, whoever wants to become one after your inspiring talk. I think I'll stop here. I'll ask Neeru ma'am to continue the program.
Now I request Registrar Dr. J.K. Sharma, Baddi University, to please give some expert comments on the webinar.
Good afternoon, Mr. Prashant, Honorable Chancellor, Vice Chancellor, and dear friends. The entrepreneurship mind, born or made. Where is the difference? I tell you, I'll quote two examples. Why I'm quoting that, Prashant, you are chef also, you have been the chef also. So I'm adding little to that. The colocasia, it is a plant which is least preferred by entire society, but it is in abundance everywhere. I prepare 4 dishes from its leaves, 2 dishes from its stems, fresh as well as stored, and maybe 4 to 5 dishes from its roots. Why I'm quoting this plant? Because this is in abundance, being used least, and people know least of that. And making some adapts to this, many of my friends, they usually in a week or the other, or they come to me and they say that, yeah, please come up with that type of the preparation. The second thing is, I superannuated from the government service, being from the mediocre family with a good amount of amount paid to me at the time of my superannuation. But that was put in bank, keeping in view that it is safe for future. The topic is on entrepreneurship mind, born or made. Now, in both the ways, it is not coming up or matching, which should have been. Had this theory been over there, then perhaps when I'm talking of a plant which is of least, which is found in abundance but least utilized, it means there could be so many other things which I am making use of that. Secondly, unreasonable convictions based on inadequate evidences means no scientific data for which we look for. We go in the journals, research papers, published work that the people has done for that. But for such type of the matter, if you want to be or one has to be a successful entrepreneur, he need not to have or he need not to publish his data in the good journals over here and pose him as the scientist. But as the practitioner, as a practical person, he has to produce it and become a real entrepreneur like you, which you reach to those greater heights. It's not only Tom Peter which said like this, but you see, impact on impact of the society. This society where you lived, and that society forced you to go for MBA. And that MBA, not for the purpose to obtain any job, but that MBA to learn that how your entrepreneurship has to grow. There is the difference between an MBA student from he does MBA, such job. That is the difference. Where our students who have been on this webinar, they could have a glimpse on this issue, that we are doing MBA, what for? Only to seek the jobs, or do you have the potentialities to go and to grow as entrepreneurship like you? I, on behalf of this university, specifically to Dr. Paras, who just, I don't know how he identified the gem out of a heap of stones, and he placed that gem in front of all of us who shared his views, and internationally who has developed the figure and the image of our country in a way that yes, the name is taken globally. India stands there also. It's not only the other that superpowers or the atomics or something where we are leading, but when we show our presence globally on different aspects, and people visit and people come, people enjoy their life, because this is a part of the life where one enjoy. So that gives more of the satisfaction to normal life of the people. For that, I really thank you very much for giving that type of enlightened facts to our students. That definitely few of them will follow these and may bring their future, or may the brightness in their future will be there. With all these words, I really thank you very much for delivering such a nice thing to the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Now I request Shri Pradeep Srivastava Sir, Chancellor Baddi University, to please share their words of wisdom with us. Sir, kindly, I request you to please unmute yourself.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can you hear me? So good afternoon to everybody, and my compliments to all of you for this wonderful session. And Prashant, awesome, beautiful presentation, and I'm delighted that I chose to be here with you for this webinar. Both, I mean, you touched the chord for multiple reasons beyond the presentation. Prashant is my son's name, so that made you very dear to me. And you are a social entrepreneur, which we just now talked about. And my daughter is a social entrepreneur. I think, being an entrepreneur has several things, and you have spoken many, and this is a very close subject to me. But what I will say is that, if you make somebody an entrepreneur, you don't only prepare him for a job, you create hundreds of jobs, which our country needs very much so. And that's what we have all the time been talking about. In our university, we must create professionals who are future ready and professionals who can create many more jobs. One question was asked about what should be an entrepreneur. There are multiple qualities for being an entrepreneur, but I would say, if I sum up into one word, dare. D-A-R-E. And dare is just not word dare to be daring. D stands for desire, a desire which is a passionate desire. A stands for, the attitude which you mentioned about. It talks about the aggression that you should have. R is something which is absolutely important, which is about risk-taking ability. You should be able to take a risk. And you should leverage. You cannot be a successful entrepreneur and you can maintain marriage relationship. And E stands for executing what you say and executing with excellence. I think you personifies all these virtues, Prashant. Compliments to you for doing a wonderful. And I'm very happy that you became part of our friends and family of Baddi University. And once again, I thank all of you for inviting me and also for organizing this wonderful session. Thank you.
Now I request Dr. Paras to please extend the vote of thanks for all.
Well, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for that. So on behalf of Baddi University, I take this opportunity to propose this vote of thanks to those who have directly or indirectly been a part of this beautiful webinar on the entrepreneurial mind organized by our institute. At the outset, I thank our speaker, Prashant. Your knowledge and presence has been really enlightening. We are also thankful to our Honorable Chancellor, who just made his wonderful comments. Registrar Sir for his, again, expert comments. Secretary Sir, who is present in the seminar. And I thank the organizing committee, the core committee of the webinar committee of Baddi University for the enthusiastic support. A special thanks to Chaitanya Sir, Neeru Ma'am and Akshita Ma'am for making this technologically possible. Our heartfelt thanks to our students for active participation, wonderful questions asked by them. With these warm words and kind message, we move to the end of today's seminar. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you.